Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the webinar, The Need for Consolidated, Robust HR Reporting, sponsored by Cultivate and presented by Rebecca Murray. Before we begin, I would like to remind you that this webinar has been pre-approved for IHR certification credits, HRCI and SHRM recertification credits, and One World at Work credit. Please be sure to attend the complete webcast in order to receive your credits. If you are joining us for the live webcast, you will receive an email from HR.com within 1 to 2 business days. It will include the certification credit information. You can also log in to your HR.com account and go to your My Certifications page where you can see the credits that you have received. If you have any questions today for our presenter or for HR.com, please type them into the Questions tab on your GoToWebinar control panel, and we will follow up with you. Now it's my pleasure to turn it over to our presenter, Rebecca Murray.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you everyone for joining us. I know it's the end of the year, so hopefully you're getting your last-minute credits in, and I'm happy and thrilled that you decided to join us today for a presentation on consolidated and robust HR reporting. My name is Becky Murray, and I will be your host for today. Things that we'll be talking about today: we will be looking at robust reporting, what it is, some of its characteristics, why you should have it. We'll also be talking about tools and setup. So if you don't have it right now, but you're considering it or feeling as though you should have it, we'll be running through some of those different pieces. We'll be talking about reporting for managers, which sometimes can be a conversation to have, whether you allow managers to run and pull their own reports or not. We'll be wrapping it up, and then I'll be taking your questions at the end. So very much looking forward to today's presentation, and thank you again for joining. As I mentioned, my name is Becky Murray. I have been doing HR and HRIS transformations for a little over 10 years now. I'm focused primarily on the employee life cycle and talent management, and kind of helping organizations come up with optimized practices for those different areas. I am actually based in Atlanta, Georgia, so I work a lot in the Southeast, but I cover pretty much all of North America. And if you've been to any of my other presentations, then you probably realize that I just love talking and educating about things related to HR and HR solutions. So we could go all day, just have the hour, but very excited to have you all joining here today. My organization is serving as today's sponsor. We primarily work in North America, although many of our customers do have a global footprint. So 8 offices, about 350 consultants, customers of all sizes. We do business transformations for companies and organizations of all shapes and sizes and all areas of business. My group, Cultivate, focuses on HR and talent management, and we do process consulting as well as implementations for SAP SuccessFactors. All right, enough of that. Let's get into our actual content for today. So first up, let's do some level setting on the concept of HR and reporting. And many of you who've been in HR for a while have probably noticed this shift in the way that human resources is being perceived, or hopefully you have started to notice a shift in how HR and its data and its resources are being perceived. It used to be that HR was, filling out paperwork and doing a lot of transactional behind-the-scene type things. But with the advent of new technology over the years, we've really been able to start providing strategic value to our organizations, giving them input and numbers and insights into how our organization is currently functioning. And hopefully that's also freed up a little bit of your time to allow you to actively engage in some of those processes. And so HR has very slowly evolved into being, a major contributor to the company vision. We actually do help to drive that vision, and also help to measure the success of that vision, given that we now have tools to help us measure some of those different pieces. So just looking at the human resources timeline of things, I like to say pre-85, 1985 is, BT, before technology. Actually, HR systems have been around probably since the 70s. They were more clerical then, and they were used for processing payroll and keeping track of time. But really, HR solutions that kind of did things all in one, time and payroll and employee data, really started to become a thing that most organizations were taking advantage of in the early to mid-1980s. Reporting really came on the scene in the 1990s, and from that point on, HR started to be seen as a value-added part of the organization. And that kind of takes us to where we are now in 2016, the end of 2016, where we hopefully are perceived as a strategic business partner in our organization. And really what has led to that particular turn of roles, or the advancement of our role, has been our ability to run reports, run advanced reports, provide insight into the organization, and then help with employee engagement. So traditional reporting, which we still need to have, we still need these basic reports. Just give us exports and dumps out of what is in our current HRIS solution. So what we put in, we put out. Now we do have the ability to rearrange and organize that data. We have the ability to do searches and queries and put in filters, to arrange that data in a manner that's meaningful and useful for us. As I mentioned, this is necessary. We need to have our headcount reports. We need to reconcile payments to employees with our GL book. So being able to get data out of our HRIS system is absolutely key to the running of our business. Most of those reports do come out in a list-based form, and many of us probably spend several hours redoing them and organizing them in Excel to get in the exact data that we need and in the correct columns and order in which people expect to see it. So basic reporting, traditional HR reporting, still a need for us today. But just like HR's kind of view of, or people's view of HR in the organization has changed, reporting has changed as well. So now we've gone from being purely list-based or purely data dump-driven reporting to what I like to call insightful-based reporting. Not only are we pulling a list of people who were hired last quarter or termed last quarter, but we want to know why we hired or termed those people, and then use that why to help us identify any trends. Is it because a particular job is being recruited very heavily by a competitor? Is it because a particular manager was difficult to work for? Was there turn downs in a particular division or particular line of business? So identifying those particular pieces is very key to being strategic within the organization. And this is where we can really start to see HR contributing at the big table and offering value and insight. One of the things I read online a couple of years ago is that companies are spending all this time and all this money putting into place these strategic business drivers, organization-wide goals and initiatives that executives want people to focus on. And when we focus on those particular pieces, it's going to help us drive business in those particular areas. And one way that we measure the success of those initiatives is through HR reporting, because advanced and robust HR reporting allows us to take people's performance and align it to those particular initiatives and then measure their progress towards completion on them. So from kind of that executive strategic initiative view, we help tell them whether that's being successful or not. So again, another example of how our reporting can help add value. So what exactly is robust reporting? How is it different from regular reporting? Robust reporting allows us to meet the challenges of the workplace. So not just to do a head count, not just to do a data dump, but to have the capability to pull out data from our system and use that data to make strategic insights and to identify trends across the organization. And so some of the attributes of a robust reporting solution, from a software standpoint, it should have some out-of-the-box capabilities. You don't want to have a reporting solution that comes in as a blank slate. You want to be able to take advantage of some best practices. You want to be able to take advantage of standard delivered government and compliance reports. Those should all be the basics. But where we deviate a little bit, being able to report on our unique strategic initiatives, events that are going on within our organization, we want to have an easy-to-use and flexible report creation tool, something that's going to help us develop our own reports. It used to be that we would hire people to come in and create reports for us, and they would spend weeks coding a report to pull this data from our HRIS system. And you had to hope that you got the requirements right and that at the end it would give you what you were looking for. Nowadays, a lot of HRIS solutions have built into them, easy and flexible report creation tools that even someone without a technical background can utilize and create reports with. So that's an absolute must in my mind for robust reporting. Another thing that's key is the ability to schedule and deliver reports. A lot of my customers ask for things to be sent their way so that they don't have to take the initiative to go in and run reports, that instead they can schedule them and have them either pushed out to themselves or to other users. From basic HR things to, such as expiring work visas or work permits. Instead of having to go query that periodically, wouldn't it be nice if a scheduled report could run on a regular basis and deliver those results to you? To something more strategic, like how did we do last quarter with everyone's progress on their corporate initiatives? Another thing that reporting should be able to do is to export out that data and those results in multiple different formats. Whether that's to a PDF file or to Excel or to a CSV, you just want to be able to work with the data in a format that's compatible for you. You'll notice at the bottom I've kind of got this arrow drawn. One thing that robust reporting should do, and hopefully does, is offer that insight into what's going on with an organization. And that arrow leads us to the word analytics, which can be used interchangeably with robust reporting in some cases, but there are actually a few differences. Robust reporting should include some forms of analytics. It should give us those insightful pieces. So how are reporting and analytics a little bit different from each other? Reporting is just that straightforward information with the identification of trends, whereas analytics actually takes that data, that people-based data, and reports on it in relation to a specific process. So not just a head count of employees, but a list of people who have turned over and the reasons why. And we typically tie our employee-related data into our HR-related business processes. And you can see I have an example of them here on the screen. Things like recruitment, succession planning, benefits, training and development, career pathing. So I don't want to know just that I hired 10 people last month. I want to know why I had those vacancies to begin with. I want to know where I sourced those candidates from. I want to know what made them appear to be good candidates and then ultimately led to their hiring, so that I can take those particular profiles and the next time I have a similar vacancy, look for someone that's similar. Same with things like succession planning. I want to know what makes someone in a key position successful in that current role, so that when I look to nominate a successor or a replacement, I can look for those same skills in someone and have them be nominated as the successor. So I want to identify those trends that help me pinpoint exactly why things are happening in relation to a specific business process. What's really nice about doing something like that is that I can then make adjustments when I need to. If something's working really well, I can push that out and share it with other people. If something is not working well, well, now I know it's not, and I can hopefully see why and make modifications or adjustments. So if I'm having trouble recruiting in a certain area or for a certain job, I'm going to have insight into why that's happening. Am I not pulling in enough qualified candidates? Am I looking in a location where there just don't happen to be qualified candidates? Is the salary that I'm offering for a particular opening too low compared to market value? And then I can go back and modify my particular process and repeat. So some things that we commonly see in terms of analytics related to HR, I think one of the most common are the first two that I have listed there, trends for hire and turnover, and then workforce forecasting. Workforce forecasting, say that 10 times fast, is perhaps one of the pieces where we see our value being realized outside of HR, because this is information that we can bring to executive meetings and provide this particular piece of information. And this is the type of thing that perks everyone's ears up in terms of how are we looking right now, how are we looking in the future, based on performance in the past and where we currently are now, what changes or modifications do we need to make to be successful in the short term and also in the long run. So that is some place where we certainly can add value for our organization. Other areas, going back to corporate initiatives and strategic business processes, we can provide oversight to those processes, as well as to provide updates on their progress. And then, of course, things like top talent in terms of identification and replication. That's both for recruiting and for succession planning. So those are some of the more common analytical reports that we tend to pull from HR. You may be asking yourself or saying to yourself, well, we don't do that. We don't do that. We can't do that. Why isn't everyone doing this? Well, these are some of the reasons. I think I've got 4 or 5 on there. Why people aren't doing that, outside of just they didn't know to do it or they didn't have time to do it, which are very valid reasons all on their own. But siloed systems. If you work for a large organization or even a smaller or middle-sized organization that has a large geographic footprint, you may find that you have more than one HR system and that you don't have access to all of them. And so when it comes to doing reporting at the organization level, you're happy just to get those traditional HR reports, those headcounts, and basic turnover lists, because you know that it takes 2 weeks for everyone to send in those spreadsheets to you and for you to compile them all together. So having siloed systems, even if some of them can do advanced reporting, really doesn't give you the insight to the organization as a whole. Another common challenge is having bad data in your system. It could be that it was old, it was up to date, we don't use that org structure anymore, managers never bother to tell you about team changes and employee transfers. So it just may not be good data. You may just keep just enough to do the basics, and not anything other than that. That really what you get out of there, you can't really rely on other than an employee's name and how much they make. A third challenge that organizations face is incomplete data. So that's great that we want to run turnover reports and draw trends and insights as to why people are leaving. But if that's not data that we keep in the system, how are we ever going to get that out of the system? Some organizations keep just enough data to run payroll, to do tax forms, and to allow for time calculations. And then anything else after that, maybe it's kept on a spreadsheet somewhere by someone, or maybe it's not kept at all. So you don't have the ability to run some of these advanced reports, even if your system has them all set up and ready for you to run, because there's no data there for them to pull from. A fourth challenge that people face is not having any control over reports. That the system in which they work has a set listing of reports, and they're mainly those list-based reports, the head count and the turnover and the birthday list and the anniversary date reports. And you don't have the ability to create any of your own reports that might merge together multiple pieces of information or apply them to a particular process like recruiting or succession planning. And then the fifth piece is that the tools just may be old, that you may be using a system that was in place before this idea of robust reporting or analytics came into play, and that there's nothing built in there to allow you to run those reports. So those are 5 common challenges we sometimes see, or things that we hear from other organizations as to why they're not able to do that. And they are challenges. Some of them you can't overcome without doing a little bit of, overhaul. If you've got siloed systems, the only way to come up with global consolidated reporting is to put all your data in one place. So whether you collapse systems and everyone hop on one, or you come up with some sort of data warehouse, that's still an initiative that would need to happen. It's not something likely that you could do on your own. So there are some challenges, but let's look at some solutions to these challenges and ways that we maybe can creatively work around them. Okay, so let's talk tools and setup. The first thing that you'll want to do is stop and do a system check. So look to see if any of those 5 things apply to you. And then kind of take a look around and figure out, well, what type of reporting is it that I need that I don't currently have? So what type of insights or trends would I want to be able to keep track of that I can't do today? And then dig into your system and find out whether it's possible to do that or not. I will tell you that sometimes I go to work with customers and I hear things like, I really wish that our HR system did X or could do Y, or we have that report, but I run 3 or 4 separate reports, and then I pull them into Microsoft Excel, and there's a macro there, and I do a bunch of VLOOKUPs, and I get it to all run together to produce this one report that our system can't produce on its own. And sometimes I'll scratch my head or laugh and say, actually, your system can do that. It just needs to be set up to do so, or that report just needs to be activated or set up or something to that effect. So don't automatically assume that just because your system doesn't do it now, that it can't do it at all. There may be functionality that you're not aware of, or that just hasn't been made available to you as a particular HR user. So spend some time investigating your own system first before you start to look outside. The other thing that you'll want to do, going back to those lists of reports, is keep track of what it is you think you need. Because later on down the road, if you don't have access to run these reports, then this listing of reports can actually form part of your business case as to what you might need a new reporting tool for. The other thing that you want to do is, as you're coming up with this list of reports that you want to be able to run, is think about whether you have data in the system already to be able to produce those reports. So back to our list of 5 deficiencies, one of them being system related and the other being data related. Even if we solve the system side of things, we still need to address the data side of things. And luckily, that is something that is within your control, because even if you don't have the data, you can begin a little exercise internally to start to gather the data. And whether you do that before you have a new reporting solution or after is up to you, but it would certainly be helpful to at least know whether you have it or not before you get started. I put up this little quote just so that you're not discouraged if you're one of those people who has siloed systems or who doesn't have the right data, or who has an older system or tool. You know, sometimes all we can do is work with what we have and see how we can be creative in doing our jobs with what we have. So don't be discouraged if you don't have the top of the line bells and whistles and all the data readily available at your fingertips. You can still start doing some things, and the more value that you can demonstrate to your organization, hopefully it will pique their interest and you know, help strengthen your business case for why you should be able to do more. So start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. All right, if you happen to be one of the lucky folks whose systems can perform or generate for you those reports and those analytical insights, then hooray, you are you know, one step forward to getting the reports and the insights that you need. And chances are, if you have invested in some sort of HRIS solution in the past 3 to 5 years, that your system does offer some form of advanced or robust reporting. You may not be aware of it, you may not have access to it, but more than likely something is there. Even if it's not as robust or, you know, insightful as it possibly could be, it's at least a place to start. So first up, figure out, are you using the system to its fullest capabilities? Or is there perhaps an add-on or an enhancement that you could look into acquiring to help augment some of these reports that you're hoping to produce? And if you're unsure about those things, then talk to whoever it is that procured that solution at your organization and see if they have some sort of admin guide or setup guide, or even if they just have contact information from the vendor who provided you with the solution. And you can always give them a quick call to see if you're using the solution to its fullest. So if you have a capable system, but not the data needed to, provide input into those ports, then you really need to start gathering it. That's another item. It can be a tedious undertaking to start getting this data in. Let's say you want to start with succession planning so that you can identify top talent, so that you can identify what makes someone successful in their current role, so that you can duplicate those particular profiles. Well, in order to do that, you have to have some profiles from your existing employees. If your organization, if your solution has some sort of self-service capabilities, then you could examine the possibility of using that self-service functionality to get employees and team members to start providing you with that content on their own. If you've got manager self-service, then you can incorporate managers into the process as well. But having employees and managers provide that data to you will be a good step in the right direction to getting that system populated. It may be that you need to make a small investment to get your existing solution where you need it to be. I often find that investing in a little bit of training or adding on, a reporting add-on tool or an advanced reporting module will get you very far in what you're hoping to do or planning to do. So don't automatically think that you can't do something because it's not there now, or that you need to run out and buy a new solution. That's not necessarily the case. Well, if you happen to be one of the people on the other side of the line where your system just can't do that, start looking for some alternatives. And I don't necessarily mean an alternative solution, because that is a big investment, and it's something that will take time to procure and obviously have a cost associated with it. But what can you do outside of your system? Can data be exported and put into Excel or some sort of macro be run to produce reports for you? You would be surprised at what you can accomplish using something as simple as Microsoft Excel. Now, is it ideal? Is it fully automated? No, of course it would not be, but at least it gets you headed in that direction. It's a start. And again, it's an initial way to start showing strategic value to your organization without having them, make some sort of full financial investment. Now, I happen to be terrible in Excel. I'm great with copy and paste. I'm great with putting data in rows and columns. I'm not very good at VLOOKUPs. I'm not very good at pivot tables and macros and all those other types of advanced things that may go into producing some sort of robust or analytical report. But there's a likelihood that someone at your organization is able to do that. If not, I've actually had a few people who told me they learned by taking free web tutorials online, or by bringing someone in, for a few hours to put together a report that would meet their particular needs. Other alternatives other than Microsoft Excel, perhaps ask your IT department if your organization has a data warehouse that you could occupy some space in. A data warehouse is a system that brings together multiple streams of data from different systems and allows you to report on them across the board. So that might be your sales system and your inventory system and your employee timekeeping system or your payroll system, material system, all those different types of systems that your company may run. To do some overall reporting on things, they may put all of that data into a warehouse. And if your HR data is in there already, then great. You may have the opportunity to produce reports out of there. If not, ask to see if your data could be included in there so that you can start producing reports out of there. Because a data warehouse, not only will they have standard delivered reports, but they will have an authoring environment where you can create reports for yourself. After that, looking at a business case for a new solution. If you happen to be one of those people who has an older system that's not doing what you need it to, that you're not getting enough out of it, at some point you may want to consider looking for something new. And that's where that exercise that we did back at the beginning, where we tried to determine what reports and analytics we wanted out of our system, that's where this comes into play, because that's what you can put into your business case as saying, we can't do this and we need to be able to do this, and here's why. Start discussing with your colleagues, in your area or in your line of business to see how they're doing their reporting. There may be tools that they use that are helpful. They may have solution recommendations on what is working for them. Another thing that I have highlighted here down at the bottom, and this is perhaps a good takeaway from today's session, software vendors, and I'm not a software vendor, so I can say this, software vendors love to help you produce an ROI or a value engineering report so that you can demonstrate to your leadership the value and the strategic worth that you would get out of having a new system. And so you can actually contact different vendors and ask them about their solutions and their reporting tools but then ask them about their ROI process or their value engineering support. And they'll actually help you through this process of putting together your business case and providing some of these other selling aspects to present to your leadership team. So don't be afraid to take advantage of that. It's oftentimes very helpful. So whether you have a newly acquired system or you have a system that you're ready to augment now with either additional functionality or additional data, regardless of where you're starting, one thing that you do want to keep in mind is the strategic outcome that you're hoping to achieve. I oftentimes sit through requirements gathering sessions with customers for helping them set up their new HR systems. And a lot of times they'll think of how they did things in the past and not what other additional things they want to have in the future. So be very forward thinking with how you approach your next step. And keep in mind, and this is simple to say, but keep in mind that if you want to report on a piece of data, it has to be in your system. So if there's something that you know you need to report on, you want to make sure that it's making its way into your requirements. A lot of project implementations tend to not look at reporting until the very end, because the reporting is an output of a particular software system. And so it tends to be something we focus on later down the road. But I always like to challenge that philosophy, because to me, reporting requirements have to be considered during the initial requirements gathering. Otherwise, you're likely to miss something. You'll overlook it, and you may not have an opportunity to go back and get it in there. Make sure that your reporting requirements are aligning with your business case objectives. And in many cases, they are going to be your business drivers. I have this graphic on the screen. I think it's kind of funny. All this data is coming in one side and going out the other side, and it's going in these two machines, and these, they've got these measures and gaskets and pipes and all these different things. But at the end of the day, you can't get something out unless you're putting something in. So keep that in mind as you go through whatever process it is you're going through, that what you want to get out of the solution, you need to raise ahead of time and make sure that that is taken into consideration. Okay. Reporting for managers. I don't know why, but sometimes this topic seems to have a little stigma associated with it. I've got two types of customers normally when it comes to this topic. And the first type says, yes, give them data, give them all the data, all that they need, help them manage their team. And the other side says, no, we don't give managers access to reports. We provide them with the report, if they should need something, but they need to call us first, and we put it together for them. And I always kind of chuckle when I hear that. So this screenshot, I knew I wanted to put something in there that would let people know that some people have fears about this, and to not let it intimidate you. So some of the fears, and these are all things that I've heard from customers. We don't give our managers that much information. Reports could fall into the wrong hands. And God forbid, someone should leave a salary report on the printer. That's actually something that's been brought up in meetings. I guess it happened at one of my customers a few years back, and ever since then they've turned off reporting and haven't turned it back on since. I will tell you that giving managers and executives who are also managers access to data, team data, employee data, progress reports, objective progress, That helps them to manage their team and their organization. That is what helps them make their strategic decisions for their own little area of the business. And we want our managers to be making good decisions with their teams and their divisions and their departments. Not only that, but it allows us to put a sense of accountability into the manager's hands. I don't know that we can hold a manager accountable for their decisions or their choices unless we're giving them the data they need in order to make good and sound decisions. So in my mind, it helps them, but it also helps us hold them accountable for things. The second point there, a good HRIS solution is going to allow managers to pull reports very quickly. And it's going to be intuitive enough to do a few things. One, it's going to check to see what data we're giving them access to. We're probably not going to give managers access to things like national ID numbers and bank account information. But we certainly do want them to have access to things like job history and job skills. The other thing that the system should check for us is to make sure that the reports they run are restricted to their area of responsibility. So the area of responsibility will be everyone on their team and everyone below those people on their team. And a good system will let you define that. Some of my customers like managers just to be able to run on their own team and not drill down into the organization below them. Some of them give managers access to all levels. So it's really up to you and your organization what you determine managers should have access to and what their area of responsibility is. But I will tell you that giving them access to this information does make them better managers. It does help them to manage their team better and to make better strategic decisions. What I've seen over the past few years, again, is that evolution from list-based reports into something that's more advanced. And something that is really very appealing to managers and leadership is the concept of visual reports. So things like dashboards and tiles. Ideally, they will be interactive so that as you click on them and open them up, you can drill down into the data that's presented there. There will certainly be times when managers need lists of things like rosters and headcounts, but in terms of progress on objectives or goals, those are all things that are very easily appreciated when they're in some sort of visual report. And of course, if you're a manager, you're probably on the go a lot. So being able to access these reports from a mobile device or from a web page without a special tool or connector is very much appreciated. So here are just some samples of different reports that we typically see put out to managers. These are some basics. On the left-hand side, I have objective status broken out by strategic initiative or strategic goal. On the right-hand side, I have compensation for team members, and I can see what portion of that is salary versus bonus versus lump sum versus stock. So just useful information that helps me make informed decisions about my team members. Now those reports can be more advanced. You can see that this is information that may be headed more towards that analytics side of things, where I look at things for termination rates, voluntary versus involuntary, or new hire failure factors, operating profits per full-time employee, engagement indexes. So this is where I've taken employee-based data and cross-referenced it with a particular HR process, hire, termination, operations, etc. And these pieces of information provided to me as a manager let me know where I'm doing things well and where things may need a little bit more attention. And this is useful information for a manager to have so that they can make strategic decisions. And again, so that you as an HR business partner and the company as this manager's employer can hold the manager accountable for what it is they're doing. How do we expect them to know that an area is deficient if we don't give them that information to back it up? And then finally, having some sort of mobile capabilities where they can get information about their team and their divisions, departments, really at their fingertips. Makes it a whole lot easier as they're constantly running back and forth to meetings or being hands-on with their employees. So here are some pros and cons to manager reporting. And I'll be honest, I struggled with the right-hand side with the cons. But I did find some to put there. You have to make it a balanced list, of course. So on the left-hand side, the pros, giving managers access to reports means they'll have data and insight to their teams. They can make those good decisions. And then there's a level or an inherent sense of accountability in place. So really all good things. Cons, they may know more than they did before. So putting a report out there may mean that they have access to more information than they used to have. And that may or may not be a bad thing. With a good reporting solution, you're going to be able to tailor the information they have access to. So maybe you can kind of keep things more in line with how they've always been. But at the same time, having access to that more information may make them better at their job. And I do have a line in there. There's a really good chance that they know that information already anyways, even if they haven't seen it in a list report before. Most managers tend to have a pretty good idea of the ongoings of their team, even in an informal capacity. And a second con, making reports available to managers through some sort of manager self-service capability, is that those reports may not be tailored to their specific needs or preferences like they are when they call you directly and request them. So don't let that throw you. It means less work for you and more independence for them. And they certainly will get used to or accustomed to more of a standard delivered reporting format. Okay. Wrapping up, I'm not going to read through all of these, but I do want to leave you with some parting words. That HR is having an impact on the business, that we are providing strategical information and insights into the organization, and that those insights are being very much welcomed and appreciated, especially around things such as workforce planning and employee retainment and engagement. In order to provide this information or to have this information to deliver, we need a way to generate these robust reports, to pull in insightful pieces of analytical information. And we do need tools to help us do that. HR solutions are now evolving to having these robust pieces kind of built in place already. And we covered some of those characteristics. We want something that has some out-of-the-box reports, that offers us an easy reporting writer. We can schedule reports. We can produce analytics to help us identify trends and apply that employee data to specific processes. And of course, we want something that's easy to use, either on a mobile device or with the ability to do some of those dashboards where we can drill in and get information, those visual reports. If your organization does not have these pieces right now, not to fear. Take a strategic and forward-looking view of things. Think about what you can do now in your organization to prepare, whether it's starting to gather data in anticipation for another solution, or looking for ways outside of an HR solution to help produce some of this more advanced reports. Things like Microsoft Excel, a data warehouse, or an add-on or enhancement to your current solution. And then finally, when it comes to distributing these reports to managers, and executives using manager self-service. Don't be afraid of this concept. For the most part, managers will already know a lot of this information. It just helps them put it into context and to keep current with it. And again, it helps us provide information to them to make good decisions. It helps put a tone of accountability to their actions. And then possibly the best part of it all, it means that they will call you less frequently for other things if they can grab that information all on their own. Okay, questions and answers. Are there any questions that I can answer at this point in time? Okay, there's a question about whether or not the slides will be shared at the end, and the answer to that is yes. The slides will be available for download on hr.com. There is another question about whether companies need to invest in having on-staff report writers to generate reports. And I say honestly, that depends on the size of your organization. Most small to medium-sized organizations probably do not need someone on staff, and most likely the HR solutions that you're using will have or should have some sort of easy writer or report creation tool that with proper training, many different people can utilize it. If you happen to be a larger organization with a global presence with many, many employees, then it may be in your best interest to have someone on hand who's dedicated to helping create new reports and keep existing reports up to date. We have a question about reports for managers. The gist of the question is, how do you determine which reports to make available or what may be useful for them? And I say that varies organization by organization. Certainly the basics, such as team information, rosters, job titles, basic skills will be useful to them. If you're asking managers to keep track of or keep up with their progress on certain things like performance reviews and development goals, then having reports available to them about those particular pieces will be helpful as well. Outside of that, kind of some of the more general things, if your managers keep track of time or hours, then reports in that capacity would be helpful as well. There's a question about, is there a good website for samples to get you started with analytics like the slide you presented? And I'd say yes. I'm a big fan of BERT. It allows you to visually transform list reports into visual reports. That's B-I-R-T, BERT. It's openware. It's free. It's not something that you need to purchase, but you can use that tool to help transform basic reports into visual reports like the one that you just saw. What reporting add-ons have you used apart from Excel? That's a great question. I think I gear more towards Excel because it's something that most people have. But for add-ons, there are several different data warehouses out there that may be helpful. But I think for add-ons, I was thinking more specifically about add-ons that your current HR solution may have available. They may have like a reporting pack, or if they're module in nature, they may have some analytics piece that's available for you to use as well. And let's see, I think we have time for one more. This question is about which HRIS system do you think is best in terms of reporting and analytics in the current market? well, I'll be biased because I implement SAP SuccessFactors, and I appreciate that solution and all of the reporting and analytics that are built in and delivered out of the box, as well as the framework that they provide for creating your own reports. But you do want to do your due diligence and evaluate different solutions to see what would be best for your organization, especially if you work in a particular industry or line of business where the reports you may need may be a little atypical or out of the ordinary. All right, I think that is all that we have time for today. So Kathy, I will turn things back over to you at hr.com.
Well, thank you so much to Rebecca Murray of Cultivate for presenting this very informative webinar today. Just a reminder to the attendees, you will receive an email from hr.com with the certification credit information within 1 to 2 business days. If you are watching this in archive format, your credit information will be placed in your account upon clicking the box called Redeem Your Credit. We definitely value your feedback, so please take a moment and fill out the exit survey that will appear on your screen. This concludes our webcast for today. Thank you again for joining us.